Okay, we are live now. Sorry for the delay. We were talking and we didn't know we were not streaming on YouTube.
Yeah,
But anyway, so today we're discussing A Master of Djinn by pdjeliclark Clark and the rest of the stories and novellas in that universe, which he calls the Dead Djinn universe. And we'll just begin with a brief intro on like who we are and what we're doing or what we're trying to do here. And I think I'll let Sandra do that.
yeah. So hi guys, welcome. So at Afro Fantasy Leads, we just uh read African science fiction and fantasy, and it's our main focus because um obviously the way science fiction and fantasy is set up, it's a wide genre. So we just pick this little niche of ours where we slow read books by African authors in the genre of fantasy and science fiction. And we run several social media channels, our Twitter at Afro Fantasy Elite, and we also have a Discord, which is basically the first thing you see when you look at our profile on Twitter. We also have an Instagram where we post pictures of books that we're reading currently. So yeah, we just slow read books, and the most important thing is that we have fun while we read these books, and anyone can join. Basically, like the book that we're going to talk about, we've read it for the past, I think, what, 2 months, November and December. So yeah, this is basically the first live that we're doing to basically talk about the book. And yeah,
Yeah, thanks, Chloe. I can see her comment. And yes, please do watch the replay. If you're watching this live or on replay, we hope you'll still comment and engage with us because we'll still be engaging with anyone who comments even afterwards. Um, yeah, so basically that's it. Michelle, you're not late. Thanks for joining us as well. We've just been describing what Afro Fantasy Lit is and what we do. And the summary is just like, those Taylor Swifties or Taylor Swift fan club accounts on Instagram and Twitter. That's what we're trying to do for this genre and for authors in this genre. So we're just like super fans who like like to encourage and read in this genre and just celebrate the authors who write in this genre. So because it's a subgenre already in the larger scheme of things. Science fiction and fantasy is a bit niche, and so in the subgenre of African science fiction and fantasy, it's even like more niche, and people don't even know these things exist. So, if you like horror, how horror is also included in this, and any fantastical thing like Sandra and I, because we love this sort of thing. So we thought let's find the community because we couldn't find it. So we're like, okay, let's just start something that's like a beacon for people who also like this stuff to come and join us. But thanks so much for joining, Gadoni. Hello. And yes, Michelle, who is not a big fantasy reader, I know, but you'll be convinced now to join in. But yeah, so we just have a list of questions we'll be going through in the hour in 1 hour from our reading of A Master of Djinn, and there will be spoilers ahead. But if you're like me and you have short memory and you don't really care, of course you're welcome. And also, you might have also just read the book. Either way, I think you'll have fun. So even if you're watching this live or later on, let's just get into it. So we have the list of questions. I'll just start. And also feel free to chip in with your comments as we go along. So the first thing is, which is your favorite book or story within the universe? So as I mentioned, there's a Master of Djinn, there is A Dead Djinn in Cairo, there's The Haunting of Tramka 015, and there's The Angel of Khan El Khalili. Wow, I remembered all those.
Yeah.
Congrats to me. But yeah, okay. Which one is your favorite, Sandra?
Okay, my favorite has to be A Dead Djinn in Cairo. I mean, I can't even lie. That's the book that, initially introduced us to the world and even got us talking about African fantasy and science fiction in the first place. So basically, it's my favorite book because of its novelty. Like, I had never ever read anything like that before. In my
Yeah,
mind, steampunk was always like white people and Victorian, I don't know, Regency, which is the timeline, whichever, I don't know. So
yeah,
when I first got it and it was 40 pages, you remember, you love short books, so it was like, this is 40 pages. I'm definitely reading it. So yeah, so A Dead in Cairo is by far my favorite in the universe.
yeah. And I just thought maybe I can describe a bit of the, not
Yeah,
even the plot, but even just the world itself. So this book takes place in 1912 in Cairo, Egypt, an alternative Cairo. Um, and in like it's like the industrialization time. And so in this world, the I think not just Egypt but Africa in general kicked out the colonizers very early on. So in Egypt's case, British the British people were like kicked out very early on because of there's this guy called Al Jahiz, who is like somewhere between a sorcerer and an alchemist, and this that sort of mystique type of person. And he opened basically a portal to another world that brought in things like jinn and these beings who also call themselves angels. So I don't know whether it's always a disputed whether they are angels or not, but it's basically opened up the world to magic, in short. And so in this world now, I mean, that happened a couple of years ago, maybe I think in the late 1800s. So by 1912, when the story is actually taking place, the world is full of innovations which are usually associated with steampunk genre. So it's like, think of um, Sherlock Holmes. Like if you've watched Sherlock Holmes, any of the Sherlock Holmes, that's the time period and that's how people are dressing and doing things. But then you also have like trams in the sky, like the tram lines are in the sky, and you have like flying stuff, you have a bit of magic, and supernatural beings. So the main character is called Fatma and she works for the Ministry of, what is it called? Al- Ministry
alchemical.
of
What?
Alchemy, something, and supernatural entities. I just know it ends with
Yeah,
supernatural entities, but basically, Egypt had to create a ministry to deal with all this magic stuff. And she's an investigator with that ministry. And so the story is basic, it's a mystery story. That's why I liken it to Sherlock Holmes in terms of trying to help you imagine what the story is. And it it has the mystery stuff but with magic elements added, and also science in its own weird steampunk way. So yeah, the first story, A Dead Djinn in Cairo, I think it was the first one, just 40 pages. It was great. I felt like it was written for me. Like it hit all the spots and I was obsessed. Actually, my first ever video on YouTube was about that book. Like it's the one that convinced me, you know what? I need to talk about this somewhere. That's how dedicated I am to it. So I'll also link it in the description. Although I was still a baby booktuber, so I can't even rewatch it, but it just hit all the sweet points for me. So I totally understand why you're saying it's your fave. And on Goodreads, Sandra and I remember on my review we were talking in the comments and saying this needs to be a series. There needs to be like a longer version, and we got it, which is like now the
yeah,
full novel, A Master of Djinn. So it's kind of insane how that worked out, like a bit
yeah.
more than 2 years after his first story came out. But yeah, so I'd have to agree that A Dead Djinn in Cairo is also my favorite. There's also something about short books and how they have to rush through the story, but Clark really knows how to still flesh things out even with that limited amount of space and time. And I think that's also like this speaks to his writing abilities, because of course that's a huge thing in any story. Like how is this thing written? It's absolutely amazing, honestly. And I think, well, we'll get into some of those other details as we move on. But we
Yeah,
both
and
agreed that the Jin Cairo is our fave.
yeah, and in your first video, you also said that you wanted it to be like serialized and not like one story spread over a couple of books. And I'm like, that's exactly what he did. I mean, was he watching your videos or
Do you
what?
know, now let
Because
me tell
I
you
think,
a brief funny story, of which it has definitely nothing to do with the fact that he ended up serializing it, because I'm just a random person on the internet. But I think he commented on my video, but I can't confirm because of the name. On YouTube you can be
yeah,
called
yeah,
anything. It was
anything,
just a
yeah.
weird name, but the comment was something like, "Oh, it's always great to hear from readers. I'm glad you liked it." And I'm like, "Wait, is this him?" Like, in fact, I had so much of a panic attack. I've just remembered that right now. Because I was like, wait, I don't think I can sleep at night if I know he actually saw whatever I said. Because God knows what I said. I was just really happy about the book. But yeah, so I think many people said the same thing. And so he took it seriously. Thank God. Yeah. Okay. So we'll move on to the next thing. Um, Now, this is a bit more on the tangent of the the world that is set, the world of this book. And the question is, how do you think our lives would be like if Africa escaped colonization, like it did in the books, like as early as it did in the books?
Wow. I
Do you think things would be different, or do you think we'd just still be in this same situation of trying to catch up with the West? Because this world has the advantage of magic. A lot of the
yeah,
reason, because in this book, Egypt is a world superpower, but I think a
yeah.
lot of that has to do with the fact that they have magic,
We
they
have
have Jinn,
Jane. Yeah, I think
yeah,
so
who
too.
are like
Because
master architects, master craftsmen, and so they're the ones who build and like do all these magnificent development type things within the universe. But like just without even the magic, how would that look for us in our world if the British and all other colonizers left earlier?
I think we would have evolved like in our own unique kind of way. Because if you look at even like the places that were there at the time, they were trading without like colonization. Like the Congo Kingdom, they had their trading with the Portuguese since the 1300s. You look at where a place like Sudan, Sudan is mostly Egyptian influence, right? The Red Sea was mostly the Middle Eastern influence. I just think that the only reason for colonization was because these white people were already doing their own things and they wanted to look for a place, obviously, to get like raw
Resources, yeah.
materials, yeah,
Yes.
resources, and it could have been done in some other way. I think we would have had our own unique ways of life, easy, just
Yeah.
running ourselves differently. Yeah,
Yeah, honestly, because if you think about it, um, they could have continued trading. Like
yeah,
trade is actually
exactly.
a way
My
of
point.
people gaining the resources they don't have, but they decided they don't want that anymore, and they just
Yeah,
want to take, and that's what led to colonization. And then you also think of countries like Ethiopia that were never actually colonized, and
exactly,
it's the way it is now. So it's like, okay, will this actually actually have made any difference? But I think it's
exactly.
different if it's just your country versus if it's the whole region, because now they couldn't even do. I feel like they were doomed anyway because they were in the region where everyone else was colonized. So we couldn't, as a
Wow.
whole continent and society, just do the things we wanted. It's very hard to do things on your own. And so like even this the idea of Wakanda, for example, yeah, I guess even them they had their magic things. It's like vibranium or something. Like if you don't have any of those extra fantasy things, it's like yeah, if you can't go it alone as
You
a
can't,
country.
yeah.
Yeah, because
And
I think
even if
all
we are
the
talking resources, Congo is still one of the richest mineral-wise countries in the entire world. And you see what's going on there. It's like they should have just, asked nicely, maybe.
they decided they were done with that.
Yeah, they're
Yeah, but
done
I
with
mean,
that.
it's interesting. It's interesting to think about. It's interesting how fiction can help us think about such things because,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know. For the people watching, just comment below how you think Africa or any other area, region, or country that was colonized, how it would be if either the colonization had not happened at all or if the colonization had ended way earlier. Because the identities of the countries within this book are so distinct in a way that I've never seen before, to be honest. Because the way he's talking about the German Kaiser and the Russian delegates, and he also mentions like the West African princess from I don't remember which country she was from, and it's just all blended together in a way that I've never seen before. Usually in the writing I've been reading as a kid, it's always an equal balance between how the white communities are talked about and the black people are talked about. So if you're
yeah.
talking about West African, they wouldn't call it a kingdom. They just use words like natives and primitive and paganistic rituals and everything. But in this book,
Animism,
everyone's things are taken seriously. Like um whatever, if it's shamanism or witchcraft or whatever, it's all taken seriously by everyone. And so it's like a fantasy world, also in the sense that that cannot happen in real life. Like the imbalance was set a long time ago and we're still living with it. So yeah,
yeah.
anyway, it's nice to dream.
It's nice to dream. Also, that's the whole point, I think, of fantasy and science fiction for us to imagine different futures for ourselves, even past, like this book, which imagines a totally different history, what could have been. And I think that's very interesting and powerful.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it opens up your mind to think in a way that you've never been open to thinking before, just because you've never seen it. It's hard to think of
Yeah,
things that you've never seen, but this book and similar books really make you think of such things, and you're like, wow, okay, how can we move towards that even after, even from where we are now? But anyway, the next thing is, what do you think is so unique about the world of the book?
oh, obviously, like, when setting the world of 1912 Egypt, it's already like a mishmash of cultures. You have the Ottomans, you have the Arabs, you have the Syrians, you have the Sudanese. It's just so interesting to see all these people come, basically uniqueness. In If there was a picture for uniqueness, this book would be it. I think just every facet of it, and the way DJÉLÍ CLARK writes, he brings the world really right in front of you. Like everything is so natural. Somebody could be walking down a street and a Jinn is selling books there. Another Jinn is, I don't know, doing just something, and that's just so interesting to me. The fantasy of it, it's so unique to me.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
his writing is very general. Like he writes
yeah,
as if the things he's talking about are obvious. Like the way you would say that, yeah, you walk down the street and you saw an old man walking or crossing the road, like that's very common, I guess. But in that same way is how he says, oh yeah, like Fatma was walking and she passed by a Jinn who was like, I don't know, doing what, or a coffee shop where like she could see the waiter was like 8 feet tall because they're a Jinn and they're like,
Yeah.
it's just he talks about everything very naturally. And the what you said about the mishmash, I think that's the beauty of the book, where he talks of Abyssinia, which is Ethiopia. He talks of
Yeah.
Sudan. He talks of Nubian people, princes, the Turkish, the Arabs, the Ottomans. Like everything is just talked about so naturally, and it doesn't seem like too much. Because the other side of the coin is you could be giving us too much information, and it's like we're trying to keep up. But somehow he just does it in a way that it's very casual and interesting, and you don't feel like this is too much
Yeah.
at once. So for sure, I agree that that uniqueness is that's what makes it unique as well. And then of course how he, I think, as you said, steampunk. We're gonna talk about the steampunk stuff a bit later on, but how he combined the original steampunk aesthetic, which, as you said, is based on usually steampunk takes place around early 1900s, late 1800s, early 1900s, around that time. And it's because that was the time of industrialization. So like the trains, the coal engine trains, and that's like sort of the time period that steampunk takes place. But then it's usually Victorian England and not Cairo. You get, so I feel like he just stole it and he's like, "Yep, I'm taking this concept and I'm doing what I want with it." I think that's also a very unique thing because most, if not all, steampunk I'd read before this was just taking place, if not in England, then in another European country or in maybe in America. So I think
Yeah.
that also makes it really unique. Which character is your fave and why?
Mm, wow. My favorite character. Let me think. You can say yours while I.
I think for me, honestly, I think it's City. I think she's just so much fun. Like she's just it. I think this thing would do so well on TV, in either a TV series or a movie or something, because the characters are so distinct. Someone might say that this is a bad thing, but you have all of the usual cast of characters. So there's the bookish person, which I guess is Onsi, Agent Onsi. You have like the gruff older man in what's the police inspector's name? Is it Ahmed? I've already forgotten everyone's names. The one who worked with Fatma in the first in A Dead Djinn of Cairo.
Asim.
A Dead Djinn in Cairo. I'm trying to remember his
Is
name.
it Asim? Or
Asim.
yeah,
Um,
Asim.
that's his. Yeah, yeah. He's a police inspector. So he's like the gruff older guy, and then you have Hadia, who is like the rookie, bright-eyed, doesn't know much, but he's eager to do things. And City is the character profile she fits is like the fun, daring, risking, spontaneous person, and I love that. I think it's just all the time she shows up, I'm just like a smile just comes on my face because I know she's about to do some crazy things and just shock everyone in the like in that scene. Like whatever she's going to do is just going to shock everyone. And the fact that she is Nubian. So I guess I don't know whether they confirmed exactly where she's from or um is it Sudan? Did she say she's from Sudan? Oh, when I think
Yeah.
of Nubia, I think of Sudan, but I don't know if that's actually correct. but she's black, like she's extremely
Yeah.
dark skinned. That's why I was thinking of that. But she's probably from those regions. But yeah, anyway, for me it's City. She's just very fun, I think.
And you can't forget her clothes, which obviously is basically just so good. Like
Of
City's character
course,
is
so we found, I think I'll leave it in the description. The claws. We found also she part of her armor, and I think what else does she carry? Well, I don't know what else she carries, but she also has these silver claws that she fights with, and I think
yeah,
that's so cool because how do you even fight with
so cool.
claws? Anyways, yeah,
I don't want to say it, but
even
it
just her
really
character
gives
design
me
is
like
fun.
Black Panther, that sticking on walls stuff. It just makes my heart happy when I think about it. Yeah. So I think my favorite character is going
Yeah.
to be what was his name? The Lord Sobek. What was his name? Ahmad.
Ahmad, yes. Oh
Ahmad.
my
Yeah.
god.
Probably
Ah,
it's
the
my
creepy guy.
yeah, not a very small obsession with you know that ancient Egyptian religion, but like I like characters that I don't know what they're actually up to. Like for a moment, I thought he was going to be like the guy, but anyway,
He
so it was
wasn't the
good.
guy.
I really
Yeah,
did
no,
like Ahmad.
I get that because he was just very, he just turned up at the most random times and you're like, this person keeps turning up. What is he up to? Like,
Yeah,
why is he
why
important to the plot?
why are
And
you
then, of
there?
course, yeah, and then, of course, just the whole idea of the cults of the ancient
Yeah,
Egyptian
I
religions,
just
which, of
love
course,
that.
City is part of one of them. And
Yeah,
also, that was very interesting, like the huge mix of religions just coexisting. Of course, it was hinted that, like, for example, those cults of the that still follow the ancient Egyptian gods were not consider they were like discriminated against,
yeah,
and like people wouldn't even say out loud in public that they were part of them. But just
yeah.
that it's part of this mishmash we're talking about, where it's like everything is going on. Like when something happens, someone is praying in Arabic, um and is say like saying a dua. Someone like City is praying to her goddess Sekhmet, and then it's just very interesting to world build in that way. I think Clark has a very easy going way of doing world building,
Yeah.
and he also doesn't stop to explain things, which I can't say how much I adore that, because honestly, if you really want to know more about who Sekhmet was, or more about like where Abyssinia is, he doesn't say by the Abyssinia is
Yeah,
Ethiopia. It's
it
up to
is.
you to go
Yeah,
and check if you
go and
want.
find out. That's your
Exactly. I love
homework.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's the obviousness with which white people rate their books. Like
exactly.
they'll just say,
The
"Oh,
number of times I've read about, I don't know, Hades and this girl who has a hard name to pronounce. It's like, who are these people
who
though?
are these
Like,
people?"
who
And they won't explain anything.
they
And someone will
nobody
just
will
be telling
explain it
you,
to me.
I lived in Where in Ohio, and you're just like, who is that? Like maybe the context is not even America. So it's just like you've literally just said such a specific, it's like me just telling everyone, and like each time I introduce myself, I say the village I'm from. Everyone will just be like, huh? If you're
Huh?
not from Kenya, you won't even know where that is. But that's the
Yeah,
obviousness with which white books are written. And
yeah,
yeah, we need to also start doing that, because when we talk about diversity, people always think now you have to describe every small thing. If the amount of food that is mentioned in this book is crazy, because Fatma is always meeting people in cafes.
in cafes. Yeah,
So I think Michelle has said Persephone. Is that who you
yeah,
meant?
yeah. I can't ever pronounce that name.
Sa nimekwambia vile it's said. Persephone, that's her
Persephone.
name.
Persephone.
Yeah. Yes.
Persephone. Okay, not bad. Kumbe it's said like
Yeah.
that. Every time I see it anywhere, my eyes just do.
You're just like, what's this? Yes, so that same way that no one has ever told you how to say that name is the way
Exactly.
this author just writes. He'll tell you the amount of dress clothes that he talks
Yeah,
about.
clothes. What?
He won't tell
Hey.
you what a galabia is or what a hijab is, or in terms of food, he won't describe to you like what this thing is. He'll just say, "Oh, Fatima ordered this thing, and because she knew it was like the best in Cairo." That's the
Yeah.
end. So you don't know whether that thing she's eating is beans, is it you don't even know it's carbs or stew. You just don't know. So if you wanna know, go and check.
Go and check.
So
Go
I
and
think I
find
get
out.
what you mean about that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I saw
Um.
someone's review saying, I think the amount of words that they were not told what they meant. I was like, okay,
Of course, but do they understand that that's how it is for us with their things? If you don't, what if
exactly.
I don't know what Starbucks is, but the main character only stops for Starbucks in the morning as she goes to work?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that is, but you people are not telling me. See,
You're
but I
not
have the
telling me.
ability
I
to
have to
go
go and
on
check what
Google.
Starbucks is.
Yeah, what is Starbucks? So, of course, people will have to say such things. But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
moving on. Um, how would you rate the depiction of Fatma and Siti's relationship in terms of how it was written and portrayed? So this is basically two women in a relationship. I don't know whether it's confirmed whether they are both lesbian or if one of them is bi, but they're basically they're both women in a relationship. Um, so this is always a delicate thing, and so I was curious to know what people in the comments and what you, Sandra, think about how he went about it. Like, did you like how he did it?
Honestly, I did. I did actually like the relationship between Fatma and Siti, especially after the whole thing. Should we do spoilers? Me, you know, I
Yeah,
don't
we
want
are. We said we are
to
doing
and thing.
spoilers.
When finally Siti like shows that she's half Jinn. I really like the progression after that. Forgiveness for me is really a big part of what I enjoy in relationships. So I really love that. Also, just the way City makes Fatma feel, I, I love it. I love it.
You're just screaming in your room in the middle of the night.
Yeah, because
Especially for
the
me who
fact,
literally reads in the night. So
yeah, that day that City came back, and then the next day Fatma wore this bright suit, and the bawab of her house asked her what's up with the outfit today, and she said, I'm feeling a bit bold. I was like, oh my god, i'm
we're
fun
about to
i'm
cry.
fun guys.
Yeah, I get
i
what you mean, honestly. Yeah,
i
there's
love
an
i love that.
obviousness with which he treated the relationship instead of making it seem
Yeah.
like, oh my god, guys,
Oh my
it's two
god.
women in Egypt in 1912. Like
Wow.
he didn't
Oh
focus,
my
yeah, he didn't he
god.
didn't focus on whether it's taboo or not. He just focused on the
Yeah.
relationship and the feelings of these two people and didn't try to make them perfect, because another thing is like, oh, this is an LGBTQ relationship in today's context, in today's world. I don't want to offend anyone, so everyone has to be perfect. It's exactly as you said. The way they progressed after the betrayal of the lying, I guess you would say, like the
Yeah, the
lying
line.
that
Yeah.
um that City did to Fatma. It was realistic in that Fatma was like, "Oh, I need time to think about this.
Yeah,
Like,
I do
no,
need
you can't
time.
just traipse back into my life and tell me this." And then also the idea that City kept disappearing and Fatma doesn't know where she is. There was this tension, which is very realistic because there's no relationship that's perfect. And so I think he did a brilliant job at just
But they,
being natural
me,
with
I
it.
don't care when people say that. I don't know, it's setting. Me, if it's fantasy, I don't want to see
Everything is
homophobia.
allowed.
By the way,
Yes.
I don't want to
It's
see
not
my
a
people
must.
suffering. It's not a
It's not
must.
a
Just
must.
calm down,
Don't give us
Kidogo.
reality, because of course the other thing is, oh, it's Egypt, like this
It's
is a Muslim society.
Muslim one.
So
Yeah.
and then it's 1912, so of course it's taboo. Like he
Well,
said,
they are
guys,
Jinn
not
too.
today.
Okay.
I know they're freaking trams transporting people in the air. So
Yeah.
what do you want? Yeah, this is the same thing. It's the same argument of when people complain. Like I know when, and this is a bit of a very tiny tangent. In Thor, the god of, I don't know, Idris Elba was the god of something in like
Yeah.
in
Yeah. The
Thor,
guy who opened the
who
gates. I
opens
don't
the
know. Yeah.
gate. Exactly. So in Norse mythology, he's described as the palest god. And there were petitions on the internet before Thor 1 came out about removing Idris Elba and putting a white actor. But there's literally a rainbow bridge in space. And you're this, like, this is not real life, guys.
Wait.
It's the same thing. Yeah, there were petitions to remove him as the actor of that god. This is the life we
Idris.
live in.
They want
Like
to remove
people are
Idris.
dying, but this is what people are writing petitions about.
Anyway.
So in that same, I think Clark understands the fact that this is fantasy. I don't care about what you guys want. I'm writing
Yeah.
it like this.
I'm writing what I
And
feel.
exactly. And I'm like, I know my audience is out there and let us live in this fantasy world, please. And I enjoyed that so much.
Yeah. But what,
Um,
like, me in romance, I usually want some yarning. Like the way we move the old
yes.
lady. I wanted those looks, the first kiss, like. But anyway,
Yes, it's like it's all about the yarning. Oh my
yeah,
God. I
I
totally
love
get that.
people who yarn.
But I also thank God he didn't drag it out. Like those times
Yeah,
for we're staring at each other for
yeah,
3/4 of the book, and then on the second last page we kiss. No, that's also the other end of the spectrum. And it's like, as much as I like the yarning, please deliver. Like just
mm-hmm.
deliver. I mean,
Deliver.
there was no explicit sex in the book, but there was just a lot of fade to black. But that's
Yeah,
fine.
that's fine.
But at least he didn't drag it out. I think he set up the relationship in A Dead Djinn in Cairo, and then even from the beginning of A Master of Djinn, they were basically in a situationship. I don't think they were like in a
Yes,
very defined relationship, but they were seeing each other, and it wasn't like now we're going to start again with like they're staring at each other. They're like, no, and I appreciate that he didn't try and do more like building of their relationship. He was like, okay, these
yeah,
two are attracted to each other, moving on swiftly. Yeah.
yeah. I also love the way City's aunt was like, "Do you know how to write poetry? Can you write poetry?" That was so
Yeah, just
good.
because
Anyway,
Titi likes
yeah,
poetry. And like, yeah, in this situation you'd expect the aunt is doubting, like, do you two like each other? That's haram.
mm, that's
No, she was
yeah,
just like, do you know how to seduce my niece? Because if not, she's like the wind and she's going to fly away from you. So good luck to you. I loved that. I loved that.
yeah,
Everyone was mostly just chill about it. Yeah.
yeah.
And then okay, we've talked a bit about this, but what did you think of the steampunk setting? Or what do you think the steampunk setting added to the story? Of course yeah, it was to me the steampunk setting is the foundation of this whole thing. Like it's the extra ingredients that
Yeah,
added the extra wow thing in the book. Because it could have just been, oh, we're in Egypt in 1912 and that's it, and we're
and that's
solving
it.
mysteries. But
Yeah,
now with this added element, and I think Clark is a historian, so maybe that's why he's really good
really.
at this things obvious. Yeah, I don't know whether he's specifically an Egyptian historian, but like he mostly focuses on Egypt, but maybe that's why it came out so well, that he was able to combine
Yeah, I can see that
Victorian
because the
England
research
settling
that
into
is
Egypt.
needed for this. I'm saying that I can see he's a historian because I can imagine the amount of research. Like me, every time I sit down to write anything,
Yes.
when I think I have to, I have to research. I just think no, 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 no. But it was
Honestly,
really,
in terms of authors that want to talk to, he's one of them for sure. Because
yeah,
the research,
definitely,
because to write something so naturally, as if you are living in this place, you have to do some intense research and
yeah,
not make seem mechanical. Yeah, you have to do some intense research. So yeah, I mean, personally, I think the steampunk was the secret sauce into just making this the best possible type of story.
yeah,
Because it technically it's just a mystery
yeah.
book.
It's just
Honestly,
a
like, remember in that first YouTube video I'm saying where I talked about a dead Djinn in Cairo. Um, I was like, I wish this could just turn into an unseen route type of situation where he just writes
mm,
Fatma and her people going on different
going, yeah,
adventures and solving mysteries. Like each book is a new mystery. Honestly, I also like the idea of it never ending, so that's why I'm saying that. But even if it's a trilogy or whatever, I actually don't know what it's supposed to be in the long run. But um I think it would have just been in the pile of mystery books. Um if it wasn't for these steampunk elements that just added just a wow factor that to me makes it stand out a bit,
yeah.
um, in terms of just mystery books. But yeah, and then we have like 20 minutes left. What did you think of the writing and the language?
Uh, the writing, uh, the writing was solid. I can say it was good because when you are carrying like the weight of a world like this, like you need to find a way to give it to people so that they can understand, and he did exactly that. Yani, the writing is simple, but uh, like I get what he's trying to say. Like even if I read what this, what are these messengers called, the ones that are bringing things for people, uh
The boilerplate
boilerplate
unit.
unit. Yeah, like when I read that, I kind of exactly knew because those words, boilerplate, I can think about, like I know exactly what it means. So I think the writing was very accessible, always
Yeah.
something I look for when I'm reading fantasy. So Wale Watu, I don't know if you've read Malazan, Book of the Fallen. Man,
Do you know
some
it's on my
writing,
TBR? But now these are the things where I'm just like, because I read
you will
Dune and
cry.
Way, I was like, I know this is what all these books are going to offer me, which is
Are
like
going,
intense world building, where it's just exposition, like pages and
mm,
pages of descriptions of things. And I'm like, that's not how you even do world building. Till today, I've never
yeah.
read Lord of the Rings because I just know that was there. I tried though,
Yeah.
let it be
The
known.
writing is actually
But
very
yeah,
accessible.
yeah. He does the world building as the plot is moving. He doesn't pause the plot to describe things. That's definitely a huge thing, honestly. Like it cannot be overstated.
Yeah.
Um,
Like I would recommend this for someone actually who's starting fantasy. That A Dead Djinn in
yeah,
Cairo. The language was so nice.
yeah. And it's a short book, and it's like, especially if you've never read steampunk, this would also be a good place to start and just know what it's about. Because also his characters are very engaging.
Yeah.
So it's a good way to start sampling. Yeah, I agree.
And even if you like plot oriented stuff. Like I remember the first time I read this book, I was a person who, if you're not telling me what these characters are doing in the first two pages, I'm not reading.
It's a wrap.
Yeah, it's a wrap. So a dead Jinn in Cairo starts exactly like there's a dead
In
Jinn,
the
man.
thick
Let's
of
go.
things, yes. You know,
Yeah.
that's like a writing advice. Um, start in the middle of the action. Don't start telling us,
Exactly.
okay, now guys, it's 1912, it's in Cairo,
It's
it's so
1912.
now.
The sun burns on the Egyptian desert, and the fish are
No, I
dead in the
can't.
water. Never.
Yes, exactly. I think
Unless,
it's
of course, it's literary fantasy. I can
oh
give
yeah,
you some
literary
leeway.
fantasy. Yes.
But
Also,
if you're
wait.
telling me your epic fantasy, CG,
Just
sword
tell
and
us,
soul,
because we know it's an action book. So just give us the action
give us
immediately,
the
please. Please and
action.
thanks. Yeah.
Because A
Because yeah,
Master of
literally
Djinn
a-
starts
yeah, even a dead Djinn in Cairo
when,
starts.
yeah,
They are in the scene of the crime. That's where it starts. And they are looking at this dead Djinn and trying to figure out what went on. So yeah,
what, the,
I agree with that.
yeah,
Yeah, and then okay. Okay, we've mentioned a bit of the plot, but yes. Hi, Kamal. Thanks for joining us. It's okay. You can replay this later on.
yeah.
We're just now moving on to what we thought of the plot. Especially, I think let's talk of A Master of Djinn, like the plot. Um, what did you think about it?
Okay. I think this is like one of the aspects of the story that was just a teeny tiny bit weak for me because I figured who the Al
Me
Jahiz
too.
guy was.
Yeah, so because there's an imposter, and at the point of the book where they think it's one person but it's actually another person, I also knew who it was and I felt so
Yeah.
accomplished, but I was like, usually I'm super dumb, so if I figured it out, it wasn't a very strong point.
Yeah, let me
Yeah.
tell you, I always like guess the wrong person always ever in
Yeah.
mystery books. When I read reviews and people are like, I got this the past. I'm like, good for you, cause
How? Yeah. Like, am I just dumb and I didn't know? Like, just tell me. Yeah, I never even try usually with mystery books to figure out who
yeah,
did it. I'm just like, let me wait because I know I'll just guess the wrong people. But I actually knew who it was. I was like, wait, isn't it so and so? Like, it was so obvious. So I get what you mean. Yeah,
yeah,
in that sense,
uh,
it was the mystery part
yeah,
of
the
the
mystery
plot
part of the
was
book.
weak, a bit weak.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's basically, I think, the weakest part of this book. Yeah.
Um, which scene had the most impact on you?
So it's between the way Ahmad beat that lady's hand off.
Oh my god. He
I know
literally
it's a
just
bit
chomped
morbid,
her
but
hand
I
off.
was screeching in the middle of the like
Really?
this.
Okay.
Can you shut up with your speech?
Okay, that's the other thing I was going to say about the characters. Like, there was a bit too much cliche going on. Like, oh, the
Yeah,
villain is
it's
going to
true.
talk about their evil plan for the next 40
That
minutes.
shocked
But
me.
that
I
was a
can't lie.
good, yes. Yeah, that was a good, like, okay, this person is going to come and bite the hand off, and that's the
That
end of that.
scene was like ridiculous. It was just so funny to me.
Yeah. And then
Yeah,
also
and
Kamal
another
said,
scene,
yeah,
he,
he also figured out the imposter pretty early.
yeah,
But he's saying he didn't
yeah,
ruin the story. Um, the world building was so good. Yeah, honestly, yeah, this was just a
that was
mystery
so good.
thing. The
You
mystery
know,
part of the book that was affected. But yeah, honestly, I
like
was
now I'm
digging
thinking of
everything
other
else.
things that I like. Do you remember that scene that was cutting off his tongue? I cried this book.
Okay, I'd forgotten that. I think in terms of okay, not even just that's cutting off his tongue bit, but I think him in general and the illusion, all the
Yeah.
scenes where there were illusions, I was also like, tell
Huh?
me more. What's going on? The room is
More.
bigger than it looks. Things are
And like
moving. It's
when
like, were
Onsi
they
figured out
poisoned?
that last story of do you I don't know how do
Oh,
you feel?
the
I
story he
loved
was
that.
told.
Oh my god. I
Oh,
love
okay,
stories
yeah.
within stories with my entire heart.
The
Like
one about the fact that the mother of this prince dressed
Yeah,
up as the
shamed
enemy
him.
and met her son in battle to teach him a
Man,
lesson. Oh, okay,
that
yeah.
was good. That was so good. Yeah, so I guess I've said all the scenes
Yeah.
basically in the book.
Yeah, honestly, it's same. For me, I just say all the parts where there was illusion going on, and I was just
Yeah.
like, even me, I was feeling like, am I in real life? Am I seeing what I'm seeing? Like, it's so weird to try and think how, if you can't trust your senses, like, what can you trust? It's very
Yeah.
disturbing in a weird way. But yeah, anyway,
Basically read the book because it was so good.
it's yeah, no, even though that mystery part, as Kamal said, like it just stopped mattering. Like now
Yeah, it's so fun. Like,
we just want to experience this
mm,
universe a bit more.
hmm,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then what do you think of the way women are portrayed in the story as compared to other fantasy
Hey,
fiction stories?
this is just one topic that, like, why bring misogyny in fantasy? Like, leave it, leave it. It's fine. Just
It's here with us. So can we go get away from it?
like we're already suffering. Just give us a fun time, man. Hmm? So, so yeah, I think it's very essential that he wrote about the women's suffrage, especially at that time and in Cairo. I really
Yeah. Honestly, I was
that
like,
was
by the
really well
way,
done.
that's a good point, and it was I think it was the haunting of Tramka 015 where the women's suffrage movement was at the front of the story. It was very much central in the story. Honestly,
I
I
think it's
thought that was a
Angel
pretty
of
brilliant.
Khan El Khalili.
A
The
bit of
one,
both.
a bit of both, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it was mainly in the haunting of Tramka 015 because I remember Onsi and Hamed in the Ramses train station, and then the
Yeah.
women's
Oh,
just
yeah,
started
yeah, 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 yeah.
coming,
They
and
were
like
waving.
we were celebrating that they'd got suffrage. And yeah, no, I thought he's doing the opposite of what has been done ever since 9/11, which is to paint the Arab world in a very specific way. He said, I'm going to take all that, throw it into the dustbin, and write my book.
Exactly.
So, just the idea of like Arab women and how they are portrayed, honestly, in even in journalism, which is nonfiction, but then
Yeah.
obviously also in fiction, it's a breath of fresh air how he was just like, okay, so that's not a thing, and we are moving on, and we're gonna have badass female characters who are still vulnerable, who are still women, but that's not going to stop them from doing what they need to do.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just love all the women because Hadia in her hijab, the way she wears it,
Yeah.
just,
And
oh,
she
she's,
always wears colorful hijab. Yeah.
yeah, she's amazing. Fatma in her suit, sitting wherever she feels at that certain time.
Yeah,
It's
honestly,
just,
she's always wearing crazy outfits, and I love it. Yeah.
yeah,
So now I
I-
think just the labor. I think for Angel of Colonel Khalili, it was the labor movement
the labor
and the
movement,
main
right?
idea of how women work in factories, um, and they're worked so hard that they get disabled from the machines, and just also just generally from being overworked. It was also kind of a thesis on this topic technically,
Yes.
with the added element of the fantasy universe. So I think he really knows how to blend things in and make statements on things without pushing it in your face. Like it's only afterwards that you're like, actually, he dealt with a lot of serious
Yeah.
stuff.
Do you remember especially that scene when they go to investigate and that lady says that Titi, you can't come in my house, and you know
Because
that
she's
whole,
black.
yeah,
Yes.
because she's black.
And City is like, okay, I didn't want to come anyway or something.
I
Yeah.
She was like,
And it's
I
like, yeah,
girl, I have a job.
like it's so he said he makes very powerful statements about
Yeah.
everything. Racism, sexism, a religion, just but it's so interesting, and it's so good that the usually in the fiction it's like people react the way they do in real life. So you'd see this person is feeling bad, is feeling cold, but City is like, okay, I'm not coming. I'm just gonna chill. Like what? So it's so nice for the women in the stories to be given agency to just be like,
Exactly.
for real, we're just chilling
Yeah.
and
And
all these
especially
different
that
things.
scene when Hadia tells Fatma, how can you treat me like this, knowing what we have gone through as women to
As
even,
women in the ministry.
be in this ministry? I really enjoyed that part because it was like, Fatma, if you don't get,
Yeah, you need to shape up. And yeah, it's also another thing about like
yeah,
the vulnerability of the main character. You know, is their protagonist halo too much?
yeah,
No, at least Fatma fell into various things as well. So that was nice. So in the comments, in Sing Michelle said, "You're not encouraging me. I've been looking forward to a lot of the Rings. Where's Summer too? Just read. Please don't let anyone get in your way. Me, I've just said my own experience. Sandra, have you ever tried to read Lord of the Rings?
please keep me out of that conversation. No,
I'll take that as a no. That was so funny. I'll take that as a no. But Michelle, honestly, just start with other things. Don't I feel like Lord of the Rings is so heavy. If you don't like fantasy already, or if you're
yeah,
not used to fantasy, start with A Dead Djinn in Cairo, for example. Um and just read how it feels to be bombarded with information because this guy does it in a very good way. Tolkien does not do it in a good way. Like Tolkien would not be published today,
so like if you bring
honestly.
people to our video who love
Let them
Tolkien,
come and collect me. I'm in my room. Come and beat me.
it's going to
Please,
be
I'm
you
only 50
alone.
kgs. It's fine. I'm only 50 kgs. Let's fight if you can't find me. And then the Ifrit told the whole book for me. Tell me why I love pacifist Ifrit and then supporting each other. Yeah, that was
Oh
such a cute moment.
yes.
I was like,
Oh, that was good.
oh, because you'd expect everything would just go into war and mayhem, which it kind of did, but not in the same way that we would have thought. Like
Yes,
the
that's the way
Jinn
most
joining.
fantasy does. Like people, limbs would be flying, blood.
Yes, but then it was like, no, actually, we don't want you guys. You want a war, and we're not with you. And then that pacifist Ifrit, which was like, yeah, she made me kill, and it was so cute. But then you imagine this is a being on fire. What's
Exactly.
going on? Yes.
Yeah, that was good.
And then Kamal is saying a Lord of the Rings was so good for him. I won't lie, the first few chapters were a drag, but it's all uphill in terms of quality from then. Now, here's my issue. I'm like, Sandra, I'm like you. I will not tolerate your 50 pages of bad writing to get to page 51 where you start writing well. Start from page one.
If you don't start
Why
from page
not?
one,
Like, okay, I keep telling myself I'll try again. Because please note, I've tried. I'm not just saying this with no context. I have actually tried to read The Lord of the Rings, but I think I'll try read The Hobbit. I'm told that's a bit of a less, type. It has less of those things that I'm complaining
yeah.
about. The Frodo chapters were some of the best writing I've read. Yeah, I think it's just like pockets of good writing. I want the whole thing to be good writing. So anyway, it's fine. And now yeah, also Kamau is just encouraging my violence, but I've stopped. And Sandra is also doesn't want drama from YouTubers, but no one will even reach this far in just to come and
Exactly.
like complain to me. But it's fine. Um, I think we have a few questions left. Let me just go to the second last one. Did the book live up to the impact of the first book? The impact that the first book had on us since the first time we read it?
Yes, that's my answer. It did live up to exactly what it offered.
Yeah, yeah, true. For me, it was more of what I wanted. Like he didn't try and do any other crazy thing. He just gave us more of the characters of the universe, of the mystery elements, and he just delivered. You know, the thing with hype books is that you're always afraid that the next one is where the author is gonna fall off. And it's like, oh, this other one was so good. So I had such high expectations. And so when you read the next one, you're just like, oh no, it wasn't as good as I wished. No, this one actually
It did
was
live up actually.
great. It was, yeah, completely. Except the mystery element. That's all. In fact, I gave it 5 stars on Goodreads. I'm gonna go and give it 4 stars just for that. But please know that I liked it. Like I've just thought about it now, and I'm like, yeah, just for the mystery part of it. Um, but do you know what? That's not the most important part of the books. I think we've all agreed that
It
the mystery is
yeah,
not the most important thing. Like, why did I used to keep reading Nancy Drew? Honestly, was it for the fact that of the mysteries? To some extent, yeah. But even when they were very low grade things, like so and so's cow was stolen, or
yeah,
whatever small thing, or even Scooby Doo. Technically, Scooby Doo is about mystery, but did we really go there because we were looking for, or we want to see some really well written? No, like half the time you figured out the plot from the first second of the show, but you still watch the whole episode because you just want to be with these characters and you just want to be in this universe and in this experience them interacting with each other. So I think it's the same thing with the Master of Djinn. And then, okay, so this is extremely random, and Sandra was just looking at me like, what's wrong with you? But I wanted to mention like the concept of Hoteps. So, whether you're watching this live or later on, please comment what you know about Hoteps and just yeah, just generally what you know about them. I was telling Sandra how I think because Hoteps are basically African American, usually men, who look to ancient Egypt as their cultural starting point. So they always, if you see them on social media, they'll always have symbols next to their name, like the Eye of Ra and other Egyptian gods, and talk about how black people used to be kings and queens in Egypt, and then now they were taken into slavery, and now here they are in their context in America, suffering under white supremacy. And so it's on the surface it sounds innocent, but then they are very homophobic and very anti-women. Like they're the ones who are like they're very misogynistic. So like women should stay in the kitchen and clean or whatever. And they tend to be made fun of a lot on social media. But I was thinking how this book would be so good for them if it wasn't for the LGBTQ elements. Like this is the exact sort of thing they would like, where the colonizers were kicked out early. Egypt is a super world power, and has magic and gene and is extremely technologically advanced in terms of where the world is at that time. And it just occurred to me like, oh my god, this is their fantasy book, except it just twists a few things that would not make sense for them. Sandra, have you like what's been your experience with Hoteps on social media?
honestly, I don't know. My problem with Hotep is that they try to claim everything. You find them in Egypt, Mara they're in Australia, Mara they're in India. Like, just calm down. It's okay. It's okay. It's the past. It's fine. Because not because I've had like this. What's the I've like dealt with people who practice Kemetism. It's the religion. Sasa, yeah, Kina Ra, and those people are actually very nice. They are very nice people. The ones who practice the religion. Now that we was king people.
Exactly. Hoteps are the we was kings people. That's actually the best way of describing
Like it's like
what
even
Hoteps are. If you've ever seen anyone anywhere, okay, I don't know whether Beyonce has ever said it, but if you've ever seen just normal people of the internet, none ironically saying we was kings. These are the Hoteps most likely, because
Like,
yeah,
cause
this idea of Mhm.
you get people who like I love Egyptian mythology with everything I have, but I'm not going to be there saying, man, I was I was the Drew who, because I know if I was in my community that time, I would probably be a gatherer or just, not a king or a seer
Yeah,
maybe, or a fisher girl. Simple. Not everybody was king, and it's
a
fine.
king. Yeah, some of us are farmers. And I think it's also this idea where they want to claim Egypt because Egypt is like what culture wise, in terms of how it's captured the imagination of the world. In terms of all of Africa, Egypt, of course, is number one because of the
Yeah,
pyramids
yeah,
and the value of the kings and all the Nile and all that. And it's like they only want to claim the best things that exist from
yes,
Africa and claim that
cause
Egyptians were
the
black.
same thing.
I'm like,
Comparison between
actually,
Western like, and see, progress isn't measured by Western standards. That's my
that's the
thing.
thing.
Yeah, as
Yeah.
in it's
So them they're
fine.
stuck in that. It's fine if you are not a king. It's fine.
It's fine
And
if
you
we
also
didn't
were not
build
Egyptian. Your ancestors were not Egyptian. They were probably from West Africa or Central
exactly.
Africa.
Like you look
And
at some
that's
art
also
from West
fine.
Africa, it's like I would be claiming that. I would be. You look at some architectural ideas from West Africa, building from like what you have, and what's that if not what we need currently?
Yeah. I
Like
think
climate
they
change.
don't know. I don't know whether they even know those things exist because they live in the West where only a certain
Yeah,
picture of Africa is drawn. So they actually don't want anything to do with sub-Saharan Africa, to be honest. And I think this book would open their eyes to the fact that, first of all, Egypt is in between. It's at a very interesting place geographically. It's in
yeah,
between Africa, the Mediterranean, and the Arab world. And what do you think happens between trading and migration? People
yeah,
intermarry. So I don't know whether Egyptians were ever black or not, but I guess it's another conversation for another day. But
yeah,
this book just made me realize that um, hoteps are muddying the waters of how people can appreciate Egypt.
yeah.
They're not doing anything better than what white people did when they discovered Egyptian mummies, like digging them up, putting them in museums, claiming everything for themselves, and claiming aliens built the pyramids because they couldn't
Wow,
imagine a
that's
country
my
in
villain
Africa has this.
origin story.
Do you
Cause
know Hoteps are as bad as that, in my opinion. Like they're all equally just messed up and don't want
yeah,
to deal with the real world. Like this is the reality. But anyway, so at least PJ Clark has cleansed my mind, and I'm going to forget that all this other nonsense about Egypt happened, and this is what I'll just imagine. So yeah, anyway. Um Kamal said, I loved the expansion of the characters. The story lived up to my expectations. I didn't care for the mystery, but I've never been a whodunit fan, so that didn't matter. Yeah. Yeah, honestly, this isn't even a book for if you like mystery. If you do like mystery, that's great, but just read it anyway. I feel like there's so much more going on with it, so
yeah.
I agree on that. Okay, then our final question is on a scale of 1 to 10, rate your enjoyment level of this story, of all the stories
ten,
in the.
10, 10
Yes!
across the
Wealthy!
board, just for
10,
the
10.
fun
We're
I
all
had.
holding up 10, 10, 10. I
10,
agree.
10, 10.
Honestly, I started reading this book and then I had to slow down because I wanted to finish reading it just before this live. I was like, wait, the way things are going. I was going to finish this thing like a week ago. Then I was like, okay, no, I'll force myself to just read one chapter at a time because I had sped through like a huge portion of it. I was like, okay, let me slow down. But oh, I loved it so much. I love and about even just the writing style and the plot and how he went about it. It has fantastic pacing. I've never thought about pacing in a long, long time in terms of my reading experience of a book, but this book had really good pacing. Each chapter was like a small book. There was a beginning, middle, and end for each chapter, and it still had that thing where you just want to know more. Like, let me just read one more chapter. Like, he always
Yeah.
ended in enough of a cliffhanger to make you continue reading this. So the pacing within the chapters and within the book in as a whole was the best I've seen in a while. It was very almost textbook how good it was, and that it's one of those things that you just want to read again and again and again.
So I don't know if you've lost Soila, but yeah, so 10 out of 10. And in pdjeliclark's Clark's defense, I'd say that this is his first full length book. So I think with the next books, he'll definitely get better at building, not atmosphere, but plot and mystery, if that's what he chooses to go with. So yeah, I don't know if we're gonna get Soila back so we can wrap up. We're actually 11 minutes over our time. So yeah, Kamau says tens across the board. Yes, we agree. So yeah, I think that's it for the live, and definitely go see what we are going to read for the 2022.
Okay, let's see if this works. Anyway, thanks for joining. I don't know if Sandra is still there, but basically we were done with our questions. We loved the book, and we hope you join us for the next live when we will be talking about the January book. Actually, in January we're reading two two magazine issues, one from Omenana magazine and one from Anathema magazine. So it's just like we'll be reading a bunch of short stories. So I hope you'll join us for that. Sorry for the technical difficulties. And yeah, we enjoyed tonight so much. So we're looking forward to the next live. Thanks for everyone who joined and commented. If you're watching um, later on, we also hope that you enjoyed the live and our discussions as well. All right. See you. Bye. Thanks for joining.